So the next steps in how to better blend in your image. I will be posting step-by-step written instructions here on the Google Classroom, a couple different methods, but I also will be showing you here as well. So the first step we can try to do is, again, there's so many different ways to use Photoshop. We're going to play around a little bit with blend modes. So what I'm first going to do is on my image, I'm going to zoom in first off, always helpful. Okay. So what I'm first going to do is I'm going to use my eyedropper tool. So my eyedropper tool is right over here on the left-hand side under the crop. And what this lets me do is it lets me essentially select a specific color I want. So right now I'm noticing that my model, my celebrity Scarlett Johansson, she's looking a little bit more pink in comparison to the yellow of the original painting underneath it. So what I'm actually going to do is I might just kind of go in with my tool and just sort of select a color. So make sure also that you're on the correct layer, because I was not just now. And I'm going to select kind of a more yellow based tone, but like this. So what I do is my selection, I'm going to bring it up front right here in my set to foreground color. So then bring back good old Scarlett, hello. I'm actually going to make a layer on top. So with this layer, I'm going to use my paintbrush tool and I'm going to go full out. So I have 125, I have opacity of 100, and a flow of 100, and I'm just going to start painting right over her face. So it's looking a little crazy, and that's okay. So I'm just trying to stay only in the shape of her face. Like that. And yeah, ta-da, we're all done. Nope, just kidding. So what we're going to do now is we're going to play around with the blend mode of this layer. So if you remember blend mode right here on the top where it says normal, we can change it up like that. So this is a method that's good for kind of helping match it a bit better in with your image. So that's darken, this is multiply, color burn. And again, there's so many different methods for how we're going to do this. So this way might work, it might not. Nope, not that. And let me try overlay. So overlay doesn't look bad. Soft light. Yeah, so that actually looks a little bit better. So what I'll do is in my opacity, I might lower it a little bit to make it less noticeable. And then with my eraser tool, I don't normally use my eraser, but this in case I will, with a super light brush, nice and big, what I'll do, I'll change the opacity a little bit down, and I'll just sort of go along the edge and help sort of soften that color so it's not as intense, like that. So the color looks a little bit better compared to what it was before. So that was before, and this is after. So if that method does not work, I'm going to get rid of that and show you another method as well. So if blend modes doesn't work, another option we can try is select and adjust. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to select an area of the image and specifically adjust for it. So the adjustments that you'll most likely use will be color balance, hue and saturation, as well as maybe levels. So what I'm going to do is, again, making sure I'm on my correct layer of her, I'm going just to, right now, I'm going to use my quick selection tool, make sure I'm on add to selection, and then click and just sort of select overall her face. I'm just going to make sure I got everything I want. And I don't want that, so I'm just gonna fix my selection so it's only her face. Okay, so one suggestion I have is before you do anything, I'm also going to just, by switching over to my lasso, this changes the feathering of the image. So right now my feather is on 8 pixels, which if you remember from our atmospheric perspective, what that essentially does is it helps soften the edge of your selection. So maybe I might not do 8, maybe I'll do 5, like that. And actually, I'm noticing right now, I actually want to get a little bit of that eyebrow, so I'm going to make sure, again, I'm on my add, just sort of add that in, just so that way I have everything sort of covered. Okay. So now in my adjustments option, I'm going to go to Window, Adjustments, and wait. So now my adjustments are popping up over here. So what I can do, again, I have brightness and contrast, levels, I have also color balance. I'm going to go into color balance first because as I mentioned before, I know she just looks a little too pinkish. I want her to look a little bit more yellow based. So I'm going to increase the yellow tones just a little bit. So if I were to go really extreme like that, maybe too much. Again, just sort of softening it a little bit like that. And now what I always want to do is before I go back to my other adjustments, you always have to go to reselect. So you always have to reselect the area because if not, the whole image will be adjusted. So again, back into adjustments. Maybe now I might make her a little bit lighter. So I can either in brightness or contrast or levels play with that. I'm going to show you brightness and contrast. So I can again make her a little bit brighter or make her a little bit darker, up to that. However, I actually think I would rather, instead of use brightness and contrast, I'm going to show how to use levels instead. So again, reselect, then in adjustments, my levels option is right here. And what this lets me do is it lets me have more control of my shadows, my darkest tones, my midtones, and my highlights. So I'm just going to sort of mess around with that a little bit. So actually that looks pretty good. A little too light. And so again, what you might notice though is that my feathering wasn't enough because now I have that sort of look. But the cool thing is that each adjustment for the selection is technically its own layer mask, which is pretty cool. So what I'm going to do now is on levels and color balance, I might just make sure I'm on my layer mask option, my paintbrush. And again, always use a nice soft brush. I'm going to lower the opacity so it's not too harsh. I'm going to go in and slowly just sort of ease up on how intense that difference is. So it's a lot of sort of playing around back and forth. It's not something that's going to happen automatically and very quickly. It's going to take a little bit of time. But once you get that perfect match, it'll be really worth it. And again, if you ever make a mistake, you can switch over to white. Like that. And you can always bring it back like that. And one other suggestion as well is that if you want to have this specific sort of paint texture, so one solution I have for that would actually be if I were just to make all these invisible, because again, I have that sort of paint texture on the original painting. What I can do is with my selection tool, I'm going to make sort of a giant selection at once, just a large open space. And there's some paintings that this might work better on than others. I'm going to copy it, Command C, bring back my original painting, and then paste it with Command V. Make sure it goes on top. Like that. And then I can actually increase that size so it covers more of that space. So it looks a little crazy right now. But again, just like before, we can mess around with the blend mode of that layer. So actually that looks pretty good. And then again, decrease the opacity just a little bit. And then maybe what I would do is I would make another layer mask for this layer and just help blend in some of those edges. So again, a lot of back and forth, but you're able to get a really cool effect that helps really blend it into the painting. And if I bring back her color, levels, and again, just a lot of back and forth. This is just slowly sort of blending it out so it kind of fits in more with her image. And there we go. Pretty good. So again, the before was this, and now after playing around with some different blend modes and color balances, I now get that. So it's a lot closer to the actual coloring. So yeah, again, instructions are all here on Google Classroom, and let me know if you have any other questions.